Hi everybody, my name's Lauren. Today I'm joined with Federico, who will tell you a little bit about himself.
My name is Federico. As you mentioned, I'm a graduate of the class of 2010. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, and I grew up in Attleboro, Massachusetts. I'm currently a medical science liaison for AstraZeneca, and I work in the renal cardio medical affairs division and also an inpatient per diem pharmacist at Rhode Island Hospital. Why I chose URI, basically when I was looking at pharmacy schools across the country and really in the Northeast, first and foremost, my brother went to school at URI 2 years above me. So it was nice to have a familiar face and someone to guide me through the process. But really when I looked at it, just really had everything that you could ask. You know, the community was small, the campus was beautiful. You could live there. You could also commute to home. So for me, that was nice being a family person. I could go home, visit my family. But really, when I looked at the program itself, it was very much something that everyone desired to be in the community, so in the area for pharmacy. So it was a hard program to get in. A lot of the resources and offerings that were available to us were right there. You didn't have to search for everything on your own. So you could not only get a rotation or a job up in Boston, but you could also get one here in Providence, Rhode Island, or even in Connecticut. So I think the faculty, when I first interviewed and went to campus and toward the school, everyone was just so welcoming. It just made you feel at home and made you feel really supported. So when I was looking at a school, I wanted to really replicate something that made me feel safe and also supported for the next 6 years. And I mean, if you think about it, it's right near the beach, and about 50 minutes from Boston and about a few hours from New York. So really a nice central location for anyone that's looking to travel to.
Yeah, really awesome. All right, so we could get into it. So how would you describe your role as a medical science liaison?
Sure. Yeah. So many times when you think of a pharmaceutical company or an industry, we always think of sales or commercial colleagues, from the public perspective. So our role in the medical division, the medical affairs division, is to help provide scientific and clinical information. Typically, that's off-label use for many of our products, or even disease awareness and education. On top of that, we work with a lot of the academic medical centers to help look at research opportunities, see what investigators are looking at, trying to improve on clinical trials, clinical trial design, looking at what the unmet needs are for patients. So really we're the liaison, as we state, the intermediary between many of those people that are trying to really elevate the science and treat patients more effectively. So our role is, I would say, it's very interesting to say the least, because we really are at the forefront of clinical research and innovation as well.
That's so awesome. So why did you want to choose this role? What made you want to be an MSL?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I really chose it right off the bat. I worked in clinical practice as an outpatient pharmacist at Coastal Medical for almost 6 years. So I was seeing patients with diabetes, chronic disease states, asthma, COPD, and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed seeing the one-on-one patient interaction, being able to have a patient referred to me and manage their condition, their diabetes in particular, was something I was very passionate about. I grew up with a brother that has type 1 diabetes, as I mentioned before, and went to pharmacy school with. So for me, it was something that I could directly influence someone, make them feel better, make their numbers appear better in terms of their glucose, A1C, and hopefully in the next 10 years, really see that their condition improved or that they had a better quality of life. So it was really nice to see that I could work alongside the physicians, the advanced practitioners, dietitians, nurse care managers, and be part of an integrated care team. So I love that, and really it's something that I still miss today. But after a while, you want to make sure that you can really look for new opportunities and really test yourself. And as time went on, an opportunity kind of came out of nowhere, and it's something that I was not prepared for in terms of being ready to go, being ready to leave the current position I was at. But when I started to look at our team and the team that I currently stay on, I remember having a discussion with my now boss, who is also a URI alum, and it was very exciting to hear how they were bringing together a team that was really bringing new therapies for unmet needs in kidney disease. So, for me, I saw that as a great opportunity to try something new. You always have to push yourself and really try to go outside of your comfort zone. So it came up, and as I started to think about it, I said, we look at patients that are not treated optimally, and I was having more of a one-on-one as far as I saw, a transactional relationship with many of those. I helped them manage their condition better, they improved their status, and then and I felt good. So at the end of the day, that kind of felt a little artificial at to some respect. So I started to think, well, how, as I was there for 6 years, I started to see the practitioners really practicing and recommending therapies as I did, and as I had helped to educate them and encourage them for the past several years. So I started to see the paradigm shift of where treatment was changing within my practices. And I thought, wow, that would be really great if I could do that on a larger scale. So when I joined industry, that's really the focus, is from a medical affairs team and from an MSL perspective, is how can we see and help and support practitioners or research institutes look at patients differently, look at patient care differently, and really try to change how we do things. So if you think of it, we're going from, for me, from treating patients one-on-one or these small group sessions, but can we help an institution? Can we help guidelines change? Can we really change practice habits to be better? And either it's for quality of life, if it's to reduce mortality, cost savings, whatever it is. I started to see that it was more of a big picture approach. And for us, it's a huge opportunity on the industry side, is really listening to patients and listening to providers, putting it all together and seeing if our science can really match that.
That's great. Did you complete any fellowships or residency prior to this, or do you have any other trainings or certifications too?
Sure. So I did not. So I'm probably a little bit different than most. So I did not go into fellowship. So, most people that go into fellowship are looking for more of that industry or research type of focus. When I first actually started after pharmacy school, or when I was thinking of residency, I actually had every intent of going into residency. I unfortunately had a loss of my grandmother going through my 6th year. So that was a very difficult time for me to try to put everything together. I did try to scramble, just tried to match with one place I wanted to be home. So I didn't match with that place that I tried to do the scramble with. So unfortunately, I did not. Afterwards, though, I wanted to make sure I put myself into the best position for a clinical position. So, I think when you don't go into residency, or you don't go into other areas that, kind of give you that stepping stone, you really have to just try harder. I think sometimes it's skill, sometimes it's just putting in the extra work. So for me, my passion was always diabetes. So I started along the route of helping with CDO. So that's the Certified Diabetes Outpatient Educator group here in Rhode Island. So I helped just doing, group education sessions. So Deb Newell was great of trying to help support not only myself, but my brother and many other educators, to give them opportunities to educate, patients and communities about diabetes management. So that was one stepping stone for me. On my last rotation, I connected with one of my preceptors, and Shannon Levesque. She was a great mentor for me in the pain management realm at Rhode Island Hospital. She helped support me along the way, and actually was my coworker at Coastal Medical for several years now, and has moved on to Kent. But we sat down, and she was able to connect me to get a per diem position there, which I never left. I worked more in the ambulatory care setting as time went on, some of their outpatient clinics, and really put myself in the position to kind of help. When Coastal Medical came up, I was able to really have that background of managing patients in a clinic setting to help transfer over. So besides that, I did go through the cardiovascular disease outpatient educator program, and then ultimately went on to obtain board certification and also CDE as well. So I'm a board certified ambulatory care pharmacist, which right now you might say, well, I'm not really using as much, but I certainly went through that during my time at Coastal as well. So really trying to put yourself in the best position as possible. Trying to think what else. I think just, anytime you can put yourself out there and really make yourself available, for me, it was just saying yes to every opportunity. I started right after graduation because of those circumstances. I started off in retail, and I honestly didn't have any, forward thinking. I thought I was not going to stay there. So for me, I just said, hey, I got to make sure I got to put myself in the best situation possible, have a positive mindset, and say yes to almost every opportunity. So, there'd be times where I was working, I was working at my regular job, and an opportunity would come up in 2 or 3 days. I would make a switch. I would ask one of my coworkers if I could have that opportunity and just figure it out. So I think many times we think it's impossible, or I can't do this, or I won't do this, or I'm not good enough. And my mindset was just do it, try, and make it happen. And so that's kind of been my mindset, for better, for worse, along, since really to bring me to where I am today, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important too. I feel like getting those like additional certifications too really kind of um sets you aside from like some other people too who might be like applying for jobs or just anything in general too. Just kind of gives you like extra credibility and also just really helps with like expanding your knowledge. Like I know they always say like pharmacy, like it's like continuing like constant learning, like lifelong learning. And
Mhm.
I feel like stuff like that really helps you prove that you are a lifelong learner, especially in like a program like pharmacy where
Yeah,
things are
and
changing constantly.
And to your point, like if you're trying to, if you're trying to go for a job and someone's looking down the, looking at two CVs side by side, yeah, they might pick someone that, of course, has a certification. But at the same time, I think people undervalue a lot of the other experiences, and they really have tunnel vision with some of those certifications. So I would encourage people, don't just focus on my end goal is going to be board certification. Like, your goal is what? What do you want to do in the next 5 or 10 years? What type of practice setting do you want to have? And really, how do you want to practice, how do you want to practice in the next so many years, and really guide and map those decisions accordingly. So if you're just like, I'm going to get board certification, I remember taking the test, you get, 2 or 3 months later, you get, yeah, you passed. Then you're like, oh, great. And then what else is there? So it doesn't really change your job at the end of the day. But it does put yourself in a better situation sometimes. And I think it could be volunteer work. It could be, working on a paper. It could be working on a poster. There's so many different avenues that you can have. So definitely don't just have tunnel vision with certifications as well.
Awesome. So, you might have touched on this a little bit before. Like, what are like your day-to-day responsibilities, like as an MSL, like kind of like a day in the life, kind of what you do?
Oh boy, that's a hard it's a hard question to answer. It's every day is something different. And right before, at the beginning of this, I was telling you how crazy sometimes the days are. But, I would say I'll start with this, in the downtime that we have, it's really educating yourself on, whether it's clinical trials that are going on, recent publications, learning about disease states and new things that are coming out to make sure that you're fresh and aware of, really to be the expert in your disease state. So for me, I cover hyperkalemia, anemia, and also diabetic kidney disease, and some of the SGLT2 inhibitor data are related to chronic kidney disease. So for me, it's, whenever I have downtime, and, our team members are great. Like, I have one of the best teams, you could ask for, and we all support each other, and we try to share new ideas to try to make ourselves better. So it could be just educating ourselves. So, when people say, like, I don't have time to read something, like, that's what I do in my downtime. And, it sounds funny, but I enjoy it. So I think when people say, you tired, I'm not tired, because I enjoy what I do. But, I would say every day is different. We try to meet with nephrologists, cardiologists throughout the week. So we try to gather their insight on whether it's what they're doing in their practice, what they're doing in research. It might be responding to them about medical questions. So if they are unsure about, some of the data that we have about our products, or about just some of the science, it's following up with them, and just, hearing what they have to say, and looking into different areas for them as well. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I need to know more data in this specific cohort, this patient population, if I don't know it off the top of my head, I'm going back and I'm researching it. I'm touching base with maybe our medical information department, seeing if I could get, hey, yes, we have studied it in that specific patient that you're asking about. And what does that translate to? Well, that person may have felt uncomfortable, prescribing or managing a patient that has, let's say, one stage of chronic kidney disease. And I say, yeah, what we studied, 30% of our study, our clinical trials actually had that exact type of patient that you're looking for. And this is going to help support them and make them feel more comfortable. So at the end of the day, it's a lot of back and forth of really trying to see what the needs are from the medical community. And then I can research that and educate them, or provide them with the tools that they need, or resources that they need to answer their own questions. Besides that, we do go to medical conferences. So a medical conference for me is much different than what it would be for a student or for a general attendee. So, when we go to them, we're on the ground running every single day. So not in the digital world, but we'd be starting, typically 7:30, 7 a.m., going to as many presentations, as many posters, meeting with people to really consume all of that new information that we have, so we can bring that back, identify where the gaps are that we can address, really debrief together as a team and learn together. And then we take that in-house, and that can drive strategy for whether it's, the brand, whether it's the commercial strategy, or really for us, hey, what gaps do we need to do in terms of, coming up with new clinical trials. So a Congress for us, when we go to, like, ASN is our largest one, and NKF is coming up, soon, we're there, I would say, it's a 10-hour day, 12-hour day, just going through, taking notes, gathering insights of what's new, and really we're taking all that in to try to make things better. And I think a lot of times it's unrecognized from the general public, but really we're putting in a lot of work on the back end to say, I heard from 15 nephrologists and they all have the same message that's resonating with us and resonating with patients. How can we make their lives better? Or what tools and resources can we put together to help support them? So I think, there's a lot of stuff that we can do on the back end to really support patients and physicians from learning there. Besides that, we do work on advisory boards. So many times when we have either a label change for a medication, so a new indication, or some other, valuable study that's coming out, we can bring together experts in the medical community to say, what are your barriers? How can we make sure that whatever we're doing is actually going to support you? So we'll bring people together from across the country and to do that and really make sure that we're receiving the right message and addressing it. And then lastly, probably the most exciting part for me is that when we hear from, practitioners across the country and they're having challenges of either implementing a protocol or implementing some sort of practice change, and they don't have experience with it. We can't help, we can't write something for them, but what I can do, we can leverage our network that we've developed over, years to really connect them and say, I can't answer that question, or I can't really do that for you, but you know what? I know someone in Connecticut that's doing the exact thing that you're working on. Let us connect you, and then you guys can look at everything together, and maybe they can support or share some resources to help get you started. So, networking, whether it's in my job or really in the pharmacy community, it's super important because information sharing is really what helps us be better.
Yeah, that's really
So
awesome.
that's a lot. I was gonna say it's a lot. It feels, so that all happens. So that's not, when you say every day, this is ongoing all of the time. And again, there's training. We do training for some of our commercial colleagues and people that are in marketing and things like that. So there's a lot of complementary work that we do, or trying to develop people, in different therapeutic areas. So if we have people in respiratory or wherever, we're trying to be supportive of each other. So I would have to say, in industry, I was pleasantly surprised to see how much people support each other and collaborate. So it's been very welcoming to me.
Yeah. So next question. So you kind of also touched on this earlier, but what makes a pharmacist job as an MSL different from other pharmacy positions? I know you talked about coastal medical and how you saw that aspect of it. So kind of just going off of that.
Well, it makes it different. So I think, you are subspecialized a bit. So I wouldn't say it's not dissimilar from someone that goes and specializes as a clinical pharmacist in one specific area. So I think the main difference is that I can't practice. So I can't recommend therapy or write the script. So I can't be, at Coastal, if I was in a collaborative practice model, I could go and recommend the therapy or initiate, medication, de-escalate it, order lab work. So I'm on more of the educational side, bringing awareness of, different treatment gaps that are going on, or basically around the therapies that we have that are approved. So I can't write the script. I can't initiate that therapy. I can really just give the tools and the support and answer questions to the practitioners. So that's the main difference. I would say that, it's not clinical. I'm not going to be the one that's actually filling that out and following that patient day to day. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And I do remember, thinking of that before I made the switch, like, can I do that? Can I separate that? And, after a while, you're like, I can think of a few reasons why I'm feeling comfortable. You always have some of those bad days that you're like, hey, I could leave this behind. But so I do still miss that. But I think if you're good and you're able to share that message effectively, you'll hear that feedback. You'll hear that feedback from providers that will come back and say, hey, thanks for all that information that you gave me. I was able to take that. I was able to treat a patient and they're doing so well. And so you still hear it, you just might not see it immediately. So for me, I think, as long as you can get over that immediate satisfaction and just hear on the back end and know like your message was received, I think that's all that matters. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, we think of, I'm going to do this for one reason, and it's to benefit myself on the back end. So I think if you can give and just continue to give, and then without having expectations, you'll be very pleasantly surprised on the back end. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know it's like a really different kind of pathway for pharmacists as
Mhm,
opposed to like traditional settings like community and institutional
mhm.
settings, which is really awesome to hear about your side of it.
And we
Um,
also, and also, sorry to cut you off, but even besides that, so besides pharmacists, we also have nurse practitioners on our team. We also have physicians as well. So basically with an MSL position is typically a terminal degree. So someone that has a PhD, MD, Pharm.D. Not everyone has that conventional route. Some people go, into medical information, then they'll transfer over. So it's not that everyone goes into fellowship, then transfers over. I think you really have to think of what the job entails, and then kind of see, instead of just having the job, is the day-to-day and is what you're looking to accomplish really, really why you want to do it in the long run.
Great. So then some skills, what kind of skills like do you have that have allowed you to succeed in your position as an MSL?
Yeah, I think I just
And
relationship.
especially
Oh, God.
sorry,
That's
just
right.
adding in, so your involvement too with the Rhode Island Pharmacists Association and your weekly town hall meetings, how has that also helped you?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of the skills for the job I have right now, really relationship building and networking is what you need. You need to be able to hold a conversation with someone. You need to be able to go out and be outgoing. So I think if you're very reserved, it's probably not the position for you, which is okay. That certainly there's industry jobs as well. If you're thinking of, going to the pharmaceutical companies as well, that you can do and be a little bit more reserved. But I think you have to be outgoing, be willing to network and collaborate. Public speaking is important. Being able to be 5 places at once sometimes doesn't hurt. So if you're used to being a very cookie cutter day, it's probably not the best position for you as well. So being flexible, I think at the end of the day, is what's important. The weekly town halls. So how has that helped? Oh, I don't know. I think it's probably the other way around. So we started that at the beginning of COVID. So I'll kind of give you a little background. So we started that I think it was April 1st was our first town hall. So I remember going to Seminar by the Sea, and I went up to Dr. Brotberg, and he was talking about COVID. He was just doing the poll everywhere, Q&A all day long at Seminar by the Sea. I think he had like an hour or whatever. So he came over to our booth after. I came over to the RIPA booth and just said hi. And then I was like, hey, I'm hearing a lot from my mom about her friends that are like talking about all this misinformation. And that just bugged me so much. Like, it's just terrible that as pharmacists or medical professionals that we hear, some of this misinformation, bothering our family, our friends, our coworkers, and how can we get the message out? So, in terms of educating others, there's proactive and reactive types of education. So in my job where I am right now, that's what we do. We do proactive disease awareness, and we do reactive questions and answers, based on what the providers and healthcare professionals need from us. So, I had said to him, I said, it'd be great if we could just kind of start talking about this, and whether we do like a webinar or something. It wasn't intended to be done every week. It was intended to be like maybe 1 or 2 times. And so we talked about it. We got Dr. LaCroix in on it as well. And we said, hey, what do you think? Can we do this with our IPA? We can kind of have a town hall and just answer some questions and throw it up there. And so we did that. And then, as every week there's more and more data and questions, and nothing stopped. So it just basically started with, let's tackle a few questions. And then every week new and emerging information came out. So we just kept going. And after a certain amount of time, I just said, I don't want to stop. I think we need to do this every week until at least a year, or until at least this is over with, and just be, something to support our fellow pharmacists. And then even, beyond pharmacists, family members of pharmacists. students as well. And so we can just be a consistent voice. It started, I forget what day of the week, but we ended up on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. And really it worked out well, because now there's all the medical briefings that have come out from Rhode every Wednesday. It's either vaccine advisories, the governor would speak. So we kind of joke offline about how now all these other things have kind of worked around our schedule and our town hall instead of the other way around. So we just took it as an opportunity to educate others and just be a voice that people could listen to, and kind of get ahead of some of these issues and the misinformation that was going around. So with that, on top of that, it's also the whole social media approach. So, we had been doing social media for a while, through RIPA, but, I got very passionate about it a few years ago as really an opportunity to leverage and really scale the organization. And so we developed an Instagram account, Twitter we already had as well. And then also Facebook, and it's super challenging to keep up with all the stuff that gets out there. But we really wanted to make sure that as an organization, we could put that out there for people to look at us and share and disseminate that info. Dr. Jacobson does a fantastic job herself. She does that every day. A lot of times we take a lot of her information because she does, like I said, a great job with just bringing awareness about testing, about vaccination sites and things like that. So we really looked at it as an opportunity to be, a leader and really a voice for the community, and especially pharmacists. So I'm sure if you didn't know by now, we actually, using some of the advocacy and that technology, we actually were able to get a National Immunization Award from APPE, which will be, I believe, on March 18th, we'll be accepting that. We'll have a pre-recorded acceptance speech Dr. LaCroix put together along with us. And I think it's just a fantastic way to show that, hey, social media sometimes is perceived as being, is not, it's harmful, but if you use it in the right way, it can be really powerful. So that's where it started. We've tackled everything with COVID, from pregnancy to the pregnancy concerns to, really looking at, the clinical trial data, testing, just getting out how you can volunteer. And then we've also done a lot of initiatives supporting URI College of Pharmacy as well. And we've had the student forums with Dr. Estes. We did another student career fair last week. We had more than 30 pharmacists and 30 students attend. And, some of our posts have reached thousands of people. We've had, hundreds in a week, but it's all enduring material, so people can come on and just watch it and go from there. So I have to say it's been really exciting to just be on the other end of it and just, work on it. Every week we have a call that we plan everything, and then Wednesday comes and something new happens, and we, as you've been on the other end of it as well, and things just change and we have to adapt. So it's been awesome. It's been fun.
Yeah, that's really great. I know, I really like what you said too about social media. I feel like, especially like as technology advances, like we've really become almost addicted to social media
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and we're always on it. So it's really easy for misinformation to spread on social media. But I feel like having people like you out there really promoting like the correct information for people, just for like the general public, like you said, and pharmacists as well and their families, is really awesome. And just using it in the right way, like it could be so great, especially with like COVID going on, like we can't see everybody. So having these things accessible, just at like the click of a button is like really awesome to have. I can only imagine what COVID would be like if technology wasn't so advanced now. Like, would we even have a vaccine? Like, would we be able to get all this information out there the way that we do
Mm-hmm.
now? And
Yep.
so because of things like what you're doing with RIPA, I feel like it's brought so much awareness to Rhode Island. And it's funny because we're like the smallest state, like it could reach people in like other towns, cities, like states, maybe even other countries too. And like the impact that it's made has definitely been something, especially since you guys got that award for it. Congratulations again on
Thank you
that.
very
That's
much.
so exciting.
Yeah, the other thing that we've also done on top of everything is really to take really an opportunity to showcase what other pharmacists are doing. So we have awards that happen every year. So we've done a really good job working with our awards committee. Dr. Kelly Sanson is the chair of that. I help working with her to really showcase the award winners and show, hey, we give these away every year, but can we really publish it to not only where they live, to their schools. So for example, we've published it to, hometowns and some of the hometowns have actually shared the pharmacy award winners or the colleges of pharmacy. So it's really been great to see not only us put that out there for them, but then also their schools and, you know, their communities actually reshare it as well. So I think it's something where, you know, our publications really to just showcase what our amazing pharmacists here in Rhode Island are doing. So I think it's a great way to just bring awareness to how great we're doing, because a lot of times, you know, people are very reserved and don't want to you know, go out there and raise their hand and say, look at all the great work I'm doing, because they're very modest. So I think we have to we support them as well.
That's very true. I totally agree. Also, so continuing on with the whole COVID and vaccines, so how many vaccines have you given to date during the COVID pandemic? And then tell us a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, so I work per diem at Rhode Island Hospital. So when this first all came out, you know, they started, you know, just immunizing the healthcare workers. So I started on day one. And, you know, fortunately, you know, when I was from my regular job, we actually have about a week off in between Christmas and New Year's. So it's a great time to have a break and, you know, really kind of reset and everything like that. But I can't sit still. So I decided to help out, you know, a lot during that time, you know, really kind of help during the morning, during at nighttime. And then that really just transitioned to working, you know, several nights a week or on weekends, you know, even after I came back. To try to support as much as I could. So, you know, I volunteered there, you know, worked there, I should say, and then also volunteered with DMAT, which is a great organization, riresponse.org, and then also some of the medical pods that are going on in the community. So, you know, I work with some of the faculty members, you know, Dr. Orr, Dr. P, you know, Dean Lauer in East Greenwich and Tara Higgins. So, you know, through all that, you know, I would say most of some of the non-lifespan opportunities, I'm not vaccinating. We're actually doing more of the dose prep, you know, overseeing some of, you know, really some of more of the logistical stuff, which I think sometimes is more challenging and does need pharmacists to step up. So, you know, in school, we're always like, yeah, I want to vaccinate, I want to immunize, this is great. But sometimes we have to go where we're needed the most. But through lifespan, you know, that was where I was doing not only the hospital workers, but also, you know, some of the outpatient, you know, patients as well, you know, that were 65, 75 plus. So I lost count, to be honest with you. I would say I'm probably closer to 1,500 or something along that line. When I kind of last really took a step back and think, probably more. But, you know, to me, it was really cool because you see a lot of people that have questions and concerns about, oh, the second dose is so worse, or my friend or my family member had this, and what do you see? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I've done 1,000 at this point, and I feel like I have a good pulse on what people are feeling or seeing, whether it's with Pfizer or Moderna. So I took it as an opportunity to educate, you know, really dispel some of the rumors. And, you know, you'd be shocked. You know, a lot of times we think that, you know, medical providers should know or they do know, and they don't have vaccine hesitancy. So I really took it as the opportunity to provide education. That was my main goal, is to, you know, dispel some of those rumors, whether it was for pregnancy, immunocompromised patients, or just general questions about the vaccine you know, overall. So it's been great. You know, I really enjoy it. And so when people ask if I get too tired, you know, I feel like my parents ask me that all the time. I say no, because, you know, I enjoy seeing people. So during COVID, when you don't get to see family or friends as much, I thought it was a great opportunity to get out there and just kind of, you know, talk to the medical community to start. And then from there, you know, see more patients and volunteer. So I think, you know, I'm fortunate enough that I have some flexibility with my job, but also, you know, we also allow for volunteerism as well, and some reprieve there. So I've been fortunate to work for a company that really supports that type of mission and really wants us to do stuff and also share the great work that we're doing. Out of that, I'm trying to think what else. So besides that, going back to the RIPA stuff, so myself, you know, and a couple others had actually published a survey in Jaffa. So we actually did one on pharmacists ready to test. So when this first came on, there was a lot of discussion, you know, can pharmacists test for COVID-19, and what are the perceptions, and how do you feel comfortable working in the community setting or at your practice setting? So we actually published an article about our survey results that we pushed out here in Rhode Island. So it was a great job, a collaboration among APA with RIPA to really get that message out and show that, most of the people that, we surveyed were more concerned about their family members and having adequate resources on site. So other than that, people are very ready and willing to actually support the cause. So I thought moving forward, it's great to see our pharmacy community that just wanted to put their hand up and say, hey, I'm ready to do whatever is needed.
Yeah, that's really great, especially being like the most accessible healthcare provider out there. That's really important for us to be able to get out there and really, it's like our time to shine right now, honestly, between vaccine administration and the ability for COVID testing. Like, we really are out here doing a lot, which is
Mhm.
really great. Um, Not that pharmacists don't get recognition, but I feel like now, especially, people are really noticing how important pharmacist role is, especially during a pandemic,
Yeah, and
which
we
is
and even like so I work in the Central Falls clinic with Aesthetis Pharmacy and Eugenio Fernandez, and when I work there on the weekends, I have to say, give credit to the pharmacy students. They show up every single week, like 3, 4, 5 of them, and they're there every single week, showing up, working the whole day, like 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is. So whatever they're doing over there to convince you guys to do it and really support, I have to give you guys a lot of credit, because it's just a fantastic job by all of the students that have participated so far as well. So
yeah, and it's also
shout out to
such a
you.
yeah, it's like a great opportunity for students too to be able to be involved in something like this while we're still students, which is like super awesome because like without any of this going on, like we might not have had these like opportunities to make connections that we did and be able to actually be as involved as we are now as students. Like students in the past might not have been able to be. Let me see. Oh, this was just like a question I was curious about. So this is kind of me going off
Sure.
script.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no problem.
but I was just wondering because AstraZeneca is in trials right now for like vaccines
Mhm.
and you work for them. I know that you're not in, I don't know if you're involved in that in any way. I was just curious if you were like doing anything with that or if you're just for the time being like in your current role.
Sure, great question. So we don't formally work on it. We don't, in terms of like my role, we don't speak on behalf of it really. It's all reactive questions that would come up. So, certainly we don't proactively discuss a lot of the stuff, and most of the data that we have is really stuff that's public knowledge. So for us, it's just if someone has a question, I can point them in the right direction. So I don't go out there and really speak on behalf of the vaccine data unless it really comes into me reactively. So, they put a lot of resources together for people that feel comfortable to discuss that. We can certainly support them by submitting medical information requests, getting them information that way. But for me, I don't directly work on any of those teams as well. But I mean, it's just, to me, it's exciting to be part of a company that's, involved in the research and just kind of makes you proud to be part of that organization as well. So,
Yeah.
but good question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I know like I wasn't sure if it was like an all hands on deck where they had a bunch of you like helping or if it was just like that specific team that was working on it or
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if you look at any organization, they'll have like special work groups and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of power behind it. I would have loved to be part of it, but there's many more people that are able to do it, and that would probably take away from my primary job quite a bit, which I cannot do at the moment. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of dedicated resources there, and it's again, so I'm able to share and support people if they need it and if they approach me. But again, it's not something that I proactively go out there and discuss.
okay. And then just kind of shifting role gears back to URI. So how did URI prepare you for your current role?
Yeah, I think just a great education. Overall, it's very challenging. The faculty members are there to support you, there to really encourage you and test you. So when you sit down, I remember meeting with Dr. Ward many years ago, and it was over at Fogarty. It was not at the great building that you're in right now, or well, you're at your house, but that you would be in. But I remember, just sitting down and talking about what your aspirations are and where you want to be. So for me at the time, it was residency. I wanted to be a clinical pharmacist. I wanted to be in infectious diseases, which I chose to switch after, shortly after Dr. Brockberg's class, but nothing to do with Dr. Brockberg's class. But, I think as time goes on, you're going to change your mind so many times. So, in terms of why I think I was successful is because the faculty will support you whatever way you want. So I remember, again, diabetes is very close to me. And I talked to Dr. Cohen and said, hey, could I shadow you for one of your days at clinic? And of course, she says, yes, come on down. happened to be my brother's endocrinology clinic, which was pretty interesting to say the least. But, just whoever you reach out to, everyone just says yes. And if they can't do it for whatever reason, they put you in touch with someone else that can support you. So just going back to the RIPA career panel, I reached out to, Dr. Estes and others at, Dr. Orr, Dr. Ward, and I came back with people just saying, Chris, I can't go, but I'm going to send an email on your behalf to the faculty, to all of recent graduates that could come and be a valuable resource. So, within a day, I had so many people that just had set me up with other people that I either hadn't talked to in years, or people that I'd never met, and just said, hey, this person's willing to come by. Can you support RIPA? Can you support really the students, is what it came down to. And that's what I value most is, sometimes you're in class and you look at your professor and say, wow, they're so challenging. This class is difficult. But if you go and talk to them and get to, again, more of getting to know people, you get to know them as a person, they're going to be willing to advocate on your behalf, 10 times out of 10. And so that's what I really valued at the end of the day, was just the connection from the resources that URI provided me with. Denise was always there to feed me along the way. So many of you probably don't have that in-person connection that I did back, many, many years ago. But I remember being able to go into Dean Lozier's class, and also Denise's, office with Denise, and she'd make you peanut butter sandwiches and just support you, if you didn't have any food for the day. So I think the support was there for a number of reasons, academically, empathetically, whatever support you needed really was there.
Yeah, I really agree. I feel like a lot of it is kind of what you make of it too, like really being proactive and like reaching out to different professors, like especially if they lectured on something like you were
Mhm.
interested in. Like with me, when I took Dr. Estes's geriatrics elective last semester, I really loved it. And that kind of facilitated like mine and hers relationship now, where I was even able to do something like this, which I never would have seen like a year ago. Cause like a year ago, I was just in her IAL and like I wasn't as like connected with her, and just really like making those connections with professors. And all the professors have been so nice and super helpful, and they're always like so willing to go above and beyond for like all of their students, which is really great. I can't speak for other schools, but I know URI, we've done like such an amazing job, at least from personal experience, like getting to network even.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I live in Rhode Island, so it's even easier to network. But it's just pharmacy is such a small world. So I think just keep that in mind as my advice for students. It's a small world, whether you live in Rhode Island, whether you practice out on the West Coast. You're always going to know someone that knows someone. And then especially if you go to URI and you're somewhere else in the country, and someone says, oh, URI, do you know Dean Larrett, or do you know this person? And when you come back and say, yes, I know them, I'm actually, I still communicate with them, I still have a great relationship, people will look at that and say, oh, I trust this person because of their relationship with URI, or because of those professors, or those intimate relationships that you have. So I think that's the one thing my advice is, keep, we always think that life is very short, but it's really long. And so if you really think of the long game and not just the next 1 or 2 years, and value those relationships, you never know, like if you're going to change, like, did I think I'd be in nephrology? No. But now that I have connections, based on some of those prior relationships, it makes a huge difference. So, life is really long, even though we think it's really short.
That was a great answer. And so what's your favorite URI memory or experience that you have?
Yeah, so I was, again, when you asked me this before, when I looked at the question, it was really difficult, because one, there's so many great memories. I was going back and forth, like, was it graduation? Was it, something I did with my friends? Was it a trip that we did? I really tried to think really hard about this. So at the end of the day, I think it was my white coat ceremony. So when I came in, again, my brother was, he was 2 years older than me in pharmacy school. It was one of those things where I looked at Northeastern, I looked at URI, I looked at, a bunch of different schools, even non-pharmacy schools. And at the end of the day, I chose it because one of the main reasons was because I knew I would have support, from my brother. And so, I didn't really have any forewarning, or very little forewarning, but on white coat ceremony day, my brother actually went up on stage and actually gave me my white coat. So that was like a super cool moment. Really, looking back on it, it was probably my most, I would say, my favorite moment to think about. I had my family there. He had his white coat on, I had my white coat. I was whatever, I don't know, 20 years old at the time. And it's, your first professional moment that you're there, taking the picture with your friends, your coworkers, and future coworkers, I should say. And, for me to have my brother be able to give me my white coat, I thought was just an awesome memory, and probably the most exciting one, or one that resonates with me the most.
That's such an awesome story. That's so like rare. Like, what are the odds that like you would have been able to actually have like your brother be able to give you your white coat? Are your
Yeah,
parents
yeah.
pharmacists or?
No. So first in the family, like we have nobody else in the family, so nobody else.
Yeah, I'm like the same boat. Like my whole family is all like business and education, and I'm like the only one like in the medical field like at all. So it's like really funny. I have like my family coming to me about like pharmacy questions like all the time. Like anytime any of my friends are sick or anything like that, they're always like asking me like, "Oh, can I take this? What should I take?" Stuff like that.
Your personal consults, yeah, that happens all the
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
the bad thing is I am the same thing with my parents, or relatives or friends or whatever. I'm objective. Like I don't care. Like I just try to follow the science as much as possible, and I do not put emotion in it. And I would say 9.9 times out of 10, which I think is helpful because I just try to be super consistent with it.
That's awesome. So were there any other questions like I didn't ask you, if there was anything you wanted to talk about additionally?
Oh, I don't know. I think, well, I have the podium, I guess, right? No, I think, URI just has been a tremendous asset to me. I think, from my standpoint, I think more people should get involved, remain involved, after graduation. Unfortunately, people's lives take them other places, and I think that's certainly fine. But hopefully, I think if you're able to reconnect and stay engaged with your community, you'll be surprised at what can give back to you, many years later. So I think, again, we try not to have tunnel vision after graduation and going into our respective careers. But if you can think of, what we can do to support our colleagues and make them better, I think that's the best thing you can do. I think we always try to think of what we can receive from others, but if we can go out there and just, really give to others and not have expectations, you'll, one, probably will not be let down often. Two, you'll probably really gain the trust of others, and three, succeed at the end of the day. So if you kind of think of it that way, you're going to be really successful. And, for me, I was one of the preceptors at Coastal. I was the lead APPE preceptor there. And, I think it's having students is challenging, but most people that do it are doing it for the right reasons, and really to make the students, and again, your faculty there, really to make the students better pharmacists, better advocates for patients in the long run. They're not doing it for the money, and they're not doing it for the self-gratitude. They're trying to make people better, and that's why they're in that position. So for me, I would say listen to what your preceptors and to what your professors say, and stay engaged. Keep pushing the boundaries, try hard. Luck happens, but also putting yourself in the right situations is what you have control over. So really just good luck, and obviously, stay engaged. If you have any questions, happy to help and support you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. It was a
Problem.
pleasure interviewing you. Hearing about what you did and what you currently do is so amazing and really inspirational to people like me and future students going forward. So I really do thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to
Yeah, no
have
problem.
this interview with me.
No problem. And my last thing will be big Patriots fan, Boston fan, every sport. So, I was a little bit let down this year with Tom leaving us. So I will put out a plug that, I'm a big sports fan. So, if you want to talk to me about sports, I'm open for that as well. So go Rhody.
Awesome.